Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to use methods in Java. I'm just going to be using a bunch of class-based methods. So it's going to be pretty simple. I'm not really creating any separate objects or anything, but I just want to show you how a method works and how you can use it in your program. So we're going to get started by creating a new project. And it's going to be a Java application. And I'm going to call this thing car dealership. All right. Now, my idea here is we're going to take some math functions, sorry, just get rid of this, some math functions that I would normally just do inside my main and then sort of separate it. I want to separate it into separate methods. So I'll show you what I mean. So like I'll do it in the main first, and then what I'll do is I'll take the code outside the main and put it in its own method, and I'll show you why you would do that normally. Okay, so let's get started. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to have a variable here for the original value of a vehicle. And we're also going to have an int for number or num years old. So my idea here is we're going to create a small formula here. Formula to appraise the vehicles. And the formula basically is going to say something like this. Current value equals initial value times 0.9 to the exponent n, where n is the number of years old. So that's my idea for the formula. So if something was a $20,000 vehicle, I'd put 20,000 here, and let's say it's 5 years old, I'd put 5 here. So that's the formula here. Let's get that thing working, and then we'll convert it into methods. So we're going to need original value, or initial value, I guess we could call it. Doesn't really matter, I guess. And current value. And we need the n, which can be number of years old. All right. So let's start by that. So we're going to go with the scanner first. Equals new scanner system.in. And we're going to fix our imports right here. Yep, java.util.scanner. And we can go like this. So system.out.print. Sometimes code completion is good, but sometimes it can be kind of annoying. System.out.print. Please enter the original purchase price of the vehicle. Colon. I'm using print, not println, because I want to be able to enter it at the end of this line here. And we can go original value equals input dot next double. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is get how many years old it is. System.out.print. Please enter how many years old the vehicle is. And we're going to go num years old equals input dot next int. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to run it, make sure it looks the way I want it to look, and behavior-wise, it looks fine. I'm pretty sure it's good, but I'm going to double check anyways. And it's a good habit to do. Even if you're an expert here, it's a good idea to run your program often and check every little piece of code. So enter the original purchase price vehicle. I'm going to put, say, $35,000, and it's 5 years old. Perfect. It works exactly the way I want. Okay, so let's do some math now. So we're going to write current value equals, the formula I originally had was initial value, so we're going to use original value times, and now this has to be an exponent. So for an exponent, I'm going to use math.pow bracket 0.9 comma num years old. That's how you would do 0.9 the exponent n. Okay, well n is the number of years old. This math.pow, that's actually a method. That is a function that we're going to be using later on in our program. So this is a method that's built into the math class. And just like we're jumping into this math.py, we're going to be creating our own method to do our calculation. So let's just check and make sure it works. So system out println current value equals plus current value. Okay, let's run it and let's make sure it works. So let's go with a $20,000 vehicle. Let's say it's 5 years old. It is $11,009.80. Let's just triple check that. I'm pretty sure it's right, but we'll make sure here. I'm just gonna do this. So 20,000 times 0.9 the exponent 5 equals, yep. So mathematically, I know that the formula is correct and it does work. Okay, now, I mean, for this example, it's pretty simple. I can just keep my formula right here. Sometimes, though, the steps involved in doing something might be a little bit more complicated. And sometimes what you want to do is put it into a separate method. And there's a lot of advantages to doing that. Doing that is a process called encapsulation, where you sort of encapsulate code into separate methods and even separate objects later on. And the advantages of that is, A, it's a lot easier to find errors sometimes, and you can also work with the team a lot easier too. You can put someone in charge of, hey, I want you to figure out the code for figuring out the appraisal value of a vehicle. You can put them in charge of it, and they can work on that completely separate if they wanted to. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. So let me just show you what this would look like using a method instead. So if I wanted this to be a method, what I have here, if you look at this formula, this is my output. So this is what I'm getting out here, okay? And what do I need to actually solve it? I need this as an input, I need this as an input. So think of like a mathematical formula, right? I've got some inputs here, I do a calculation, and then I get an output. That's the idea here. So in this method, we're going to write public static double. I'm going to write appraise vehicle bracket double orig and an int n. Okay, so let me walk you through what I'm doing in this line here. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm creating another method, and it is going to be public. I want it public so that I can see it from this method right here. I want it to see it from the main. Static. The word static is one of the harder concepts to understand in Java, in my opinion. Static just means that it's a class-based variable. This public class car dealership, I'm not actually making an instance of it anywhere. It's just staying as a class car dealership. So because of that, I have to put the word static here, which makes this method class-based. Later on, when you start creating actual objects and instances, you don't need to worry about this word. But at this stage of the game, this is static because I am not making an instance of the car dealership class. So I mean, and that's a little advanced at this stage, but later on, as you start working with objects a bit more, this will make a lot more sense. This word right here, double, just means that out of my method, I have to get a double out of it. That's going to be the result. It's going to be my output. I must send back a double. And that's actually why it's giving me an error right now. It's saying it's missing a return statement. I have to send back a number. So that's what this line means right here, or this spot. This right here, appraise vehicle, you can call it whatever you want. This is the method name. I want to give it this name because that's really what my method is going to do. It's going to appraise the price of vehicle. Now in here, these are my input parameters. So you can have one or more, or sometimes you can even have none if you'd like. Okay, you can put whatever you want in here. But these are the variables that are going to come into my method that I need for my calculation. So what I usually do is I usually have a different name than what I would have over here. So for example, I have original value right here, right? I would use a method name that is similar to original value but not exactly the same. I don't like getting myself confused which one is which, so I do give them different names generally. But I believe you actually can keep them the same if you want. It's of type double, so the original value is going to come in as a double. I'm also going to have the original n, which is going to be the number of years, come in as an int. Now, inside of my method, what basically happens is that the variables that come in, so I'm going to send in original value and num years old. They're essentially going to be renamed or relabeled as orig and n inside my method. So from here to here, these variables are going to be the only names I can use. I can't use original value and I can't use num years old because those are in a different method. The only variables I can see is these two. So my formula has to reflect that. So let's go and make our formula now. So it'll be double cur value equals, and it's basically the same formula as I have in line 23 here. So it's going to be orig times math.pow bracket 0.9 comma n. Okay, so I figured out my current value, exact same formula, I'm just using different variables here. And the last thing I have to do is I have to return this. I have to return cur value. That's the name I gave my current value right here. So I have to return it. I have to make that number go back to where it came from. It's going to go back into the main. And that actually caused the error to go away now because now I'm actually returning a double variable. This is my double. I'm returning it. It matches what I have right here. Okay, now this line I don't want to use anymore. What I'm going to do is use this method instead. So I'm going to say current value equals appraise vehicle bracket. Now, in the appraised vehicle, I need to send two variables in. The first one has to be a double, which corresponds to the original value, and the second thing has to be an n, which is the number of years. So the first thing I'm going to send in is original value. The second thing I'm going to send in is num years old. Just like that. So what will happen in my program here is I'm going to get my original value, I'm going to get my number of years old, it's going to hit this line. And this line, it says the current value is going to be the result of the appraise vehicle method, and I'm going to send in original value and num years old. What Java is going to do is it's going to look for this method. It's going to say, hey, here it is right here in line 30. It's going to jump to line 30. And what's going to happen is my original value, which is right here, that's the name of it, would now be known as orig. The num years old is now going to be known as n. So the reason we do that is because, I could just as easily use this line. For example, say I copied it, and I could put something like this, 25,000, comma 2. Okay, so that would also work. But what happens is this 25,000 has no variable name, right? So it has to be assigned a variable name, and that's what it's doing here. So this is it's gonna label whatever the first double is. It's gonna label it as orig. Now, if it already has a name, that doesn't matter. It still gets named as orig. So it works with just pure numbers, but it also works with variables, just like I showed you. Okay, so again, what happens is these two methods get sent in. They get renamed or relabeled, basically. Okay, the new names are used in a new formula, and it gets the current value, and then it returns it. And return, what that'll do is it'll send back a number, which would then be used and saved into this current value here. So let's try it out. Make sure it still works. So I think what was our first one? 20,000, 5 years. And we get the exact same answer. So it does work. And there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of advantages to doing this. You can take some really complex code and you can sort of split it up into different methods and make your main as simple as possible. It's really, really good for debugging. And like I said, imagine this formula was really complicated. I could have a second programmer just create this thing for me. And you know what? It doesn't even matter what I call my variables in the main. It really doesn't matter because as long as my variables sort of match up with these right here, it doesn't matter what I've called them. So this is a totally self-contained little method here. And this is useful because you can copy and paste this into other programs, and it's really, really, really easy to reuse it. Let's just do one more quick one. I'm also going to make a tax one. So we're going to go public static double apply taxes. And I'm going to use an double, I don't know, amount. Something like that. Now in Canada, we use 13%. So I'm going to apply 13% tax on whatever this amount is. So whatever that amount is, I'm going to say double amount with tax equals amount times 1.13. And then I can return amount with tax. Now you can actually simplify this into one line if you want. You could just go return amount times 1.13 if you want, really. But you get the idea hopefully here. So in this method, I have an amount coming in. I'm going to apply the taxes to it and then return back the new amount. Let's try it in our program here. So we're going to say double final value is going to equal to apply taxes of, and I have to send in some sort of a double, right? The double that I want to send in is called current value. Current value. I want to send that value in, so it'll apply the taxes to it. And then finally, let's print it out. Amount with taxes equals plus final value. All right, let's try it out again. Okay, so we'll do 20,000 again and 5 years. And that is the amount with taxes. I'm just going to double check it, make sure that worked. 11,809 and 80 cents times 1.13, 345, and yep, that's correct. Okay. So again, in this example, could I have just applied the taxes right here in the main? Definitely. So for something simple like taxes, maybe it's not really worth it to do a separate method, but you're going to use this when you get really complex methods. Again, it's going to simplify your program. All your mathematics are actually not going to be in your main for the most part. They're going to be in separate methods. And it really, really, really will simplify things the more your programs build in complexity. So I hope you learned a little bit about methods here. Let me just show you one more thing actually. You could actually do another method too. Let me show you what the avoid method looks like. So void method basically means it's a method that, let's see, it returns nothing. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the word here. It returns nothing. So let's go public static void display car detail, bracket, something like that. Okay, so this method here, it's called display car detail. It takes nothing in, so there's no inputs, and it actually returns nothing. So you don't have to have a return statement. You just go in, and we could do something simple like system.out.println. Thanks for purchasing. Actually, instead of display car detail, let's just call it thank user. Something like that. Thank user. We can call this thing from our main and just go thank user, bracket. This one does not require an equal sign. Like if you look at this one here, I had to put an equal sign in order to get into appraised vehicle. This one doesn't because it's not sending anything back. So it's just like, I just want Java to jump into this area. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just calling thank user, and it's going to jump down here and say thanks for purchasing. It's kind of a simple little method. You might use that for print statements sometimes, or if you want a big chunk of code down here, you can jump into that. This is one way of doing it. I'll just show you that works, and that'll be the end here. 5 years. Oh, I spelled purchasing wrong. Look at that. Purchasing. There we go. Yeah, so there's a couple different methods here. I do have other videos on my YouTube channel showing even more about this. There's a geometry calculator that I've created before that has a lot more math involved than something like this. Something you may want to check out in the future. But anyways, I hope you have a little bit of an understanding now of how methods work, why you might use them. Again, the biggest reasons: code reuse. This is very, very easy to copy and paste into any other program now. Debugging, working with other people, like working as part of a team. That's the whole point is. Otherwise, if everybody's working in the main, Very difficult to do that. Very, very difficult if you got more than one person. But if you have a person that's, you say, I want you to work out the calculations for appraising the vehicle, they could do that separately, and it won't be a problem. It's very easy to copy and paste in there. So anyways, little demonstration here in how methods work, and I hope you learned something about it.